Here we are live. Let me adjust the height a little bit. There you go. There you go. There you go. Here we are live again. One more Sunday. One more impeccable day. Whether it's a Sunday or a Monday. Sunday. Moon day. Tuesday. I don't know what Tuesday is. And all of that. It's all Greco-Roman. By the way, here's a challenge for you. Name one country. One country. It's completely off topic. One country that doesn't have a Greco-Roman name. Name it to claim it. Acts of entitlement versus acts of power. The title is self-explanatory, but I do want to expand upon it a little bit. The warriors contend, the Toltecs contend, that there are acts of entitlement and then there are acts of power. And both have unique characteristics. And they also contend that that's the only two ways to act whilst you are incarnated. You're either your acts are the acts of entitlement, or your acts are the acts of power. In the average man's consensus reality, as time goes by, the acts of entitlement increase. If there was a graph, there would be an increase as the generations go by, as time goes by. Even in an individual's life, there's an increase in acts of entitlement. In the warrior's world, in the Toltec warrior's world, same thing happens, but as time goes by, there's an increase in acts of power, an exponential increase in acts of power. Both have unique characteristics, as I said before. Acts of entitlement are born out of a mentality of what's the least I can get away with? What's the least I can do to get the thing that I desire or the results that I want? What's the least I can get away with to make my dreams come true, to have my prayers answered? What's the least I can get away with? All acts of entitlement have this as inbuilt firmware. What's the least I can get away with is the default firmware of all acts of entitlement. And exactly the opposite is true in the world of the Toltec warrior. What's the most I can do? And then beyond that as well. What's the best I can do here? And then what more can I give? What more can I do? What's the least I can get away with? What more can I do? Now, there's a lot of these acts are not huge acts, of Hollywood-like grandiose explosions and results and CGI and monsters and angels and she lived happily ever after and they, the happy couple and the romantic comedy. It's all nonsense. Now I find, as I've observed, since TV was introduced, radio, we're looking at about 80 odd years of severe indoctrination in the average man's consensus reality. And the results of those indoctrination are that the average man finds it nearly impossible to distinguish between hard, natural reality and its flow and the indoctrination of Hollywood and Netflix and because every movie is the same script. It's really the same thing. All movies are really the same movie. All love songs, Western love songs at least, are all, but there's all one song. It's all one song. So that level of indoctrination has completely befuddled the average man. And so whenever we think of acts, even just everyday things like acts, it takes on a Hollywood, a Netflix kind of filmic feel to it. There must be some grand entertainment to go on behind all this. But that's not true. Acts of entitlement are also little acts, tiny acts, everyday acts. And acts of power are also tiny everyday acts, which grow incrementally, right? As they say, the blessings are in the details. The knowledge, the power is in the details. So you've got to look at your little acts to see what's happening. Is it an act of entitlement or is it an act of power? So the first characteristic that is inbuilt into acts of entitlement is, what's the least I can get away with? Yeah. The second characteristic of acts of entitlement is that the consequences of acts of entitlement are nil, zero. There's nothing happens. No wishes are fulfilled, no prayers are answered, no hopes are, no hopes come true. Nothing happens. What's the least I can get away with? Nothing happens. In the Toltec warrior's world, on the other hand, because every act of the Toltec warrior is an act of power, the warrior very quickly gets used to success and successful results constantly. It's because of the way the warrior navigates in the world that success is always results in success constantly. Acts of entitlement, I have yet to witness an act of entitlement resulting in success. It, at the very least, results in not even failure. Actually, nothing happens. Psst, like a balloon that's been pricked. And at the very best, it becomes a toxic curse that just rides you till the day you die. So acts of entitlement really never have good, advantageous results. Right? These are the two main characteristics of these acts of entitlement and acts of power. And it would behoove you, if you're interested in the Toltec path, to really start looking at how you approach things. Do you approach even your most mundane everyday action as what's the least I can get away with? Or do you approach it with, I'm going to give my best to this, because that is what impeccability is all about. And we all know that acts of power have impeccability as firmware. Acts of entitlement have what's the least I can get away with as firmware inbuilt, and acts of power have impeccability inbuilt in them. There are many other ramifications of these two paradigms. And there's one thing to note about acts of entitlement is that because the average man has no energy, and what little the average man has of their personal energy and power is wasted and frittered away in self-absorbed nonsense. So look at some of the comments on my channel. It's self-evident that these fools only know acts of entitlement, nothing more. So it makes them ineffectual, powerless, and foolish. Stupid, really, right? Acts of power, on the other hand, require a lot of energy. A lot of energy. So you have people who don't have any energy to start with because the parasite siphons away most of their energy. Let's say 99% of the, so you, all right, let's break it down even more. You have a creature radiating literally infinite amounts of power, or born that way. You have a parasite that attaches itself to that creature. And the parasite isn't stupid, it's not like a little worm, it's a very sophisticated, very intelligent entity. And it has a vast network, and we are seeing its game play out at the moment in most obvious ways. That parasite attaches itself or represents itself in terms of what I call the machine mind. Into each, it inserts itself into each psyche. And that machine mind is there for one reason alone, is to siphon off, leech that infinite, creative, pure energy, essence, energy, the energy of high-grade awareness from that individual. As long as it lives, it'll keep leeching energy from it. So this individual, this average man, average woman, 99% of their free-flowing, fantastic, infinite energy is already finished. The parasites leech it away. The 1% that's left, the machine mind makes sure that there's a system in place in its farm that makes sure that that 1%, meager 1% that's left, is always used in meager ways, impoverished ways, mainly self-absorbed nonsense, so that the creature lives and dies a life of worthless, fruitless slavery. Parasited upon all their life, and so indoctrinated that they will defend it. They will come up with great philosophies and arguments, and that philosopher said this, and the TV has told us this, and I saw that program, and I saw it on TV. The news is a parasite unto itself. I heard it on the news. It must be true. Yes. So, acts of entitlement take no energy whatsoever, because there's no consequences. Nothing is happening. There's no results are going to happen from it. It's just, it's like, it's like those fireworks that you light them with great anticipation, and it's like, nothing happens. Those are acts of entitlement. Acts of power, on the other hand, no matter how small or large they are like freaking cannonballs, like mortar shells that put people into shock, right? So, creatures who don't have energy to begin with, what can you expect? They won't be able to manage anything more than acts of entitlement, because there's just no energy. The system isn't processing any energy. It's all leached out. It's like a virus on your computer that jams your computer completely. Warriors have, I'm telling you that you can absolutely quote me on this, and anyone who contends this, send them to this particular thing, what I'm saying here. Toltec warriors have some of the most invulnerable shielding you will ever find in any sentient entity. I guarantee you this. Mark my words. You can say this to anyone, most of them won't understand what you're saying. And anyone who does understand what you're saying, if they contend it, send them here. Toltec warriors have some of the most invulnerable firewall running in their system. You know what that firewall is? Can anyone guess? It makes the Toltec warrior nearly invincible. If anyone comes up, well, Ian's there. He's my apprentice. He might clock it, or some of my apprentices might clock it. Diffraction's close. Let's put another word before awareness, and that word is focused awareness, you could call it, or undistracted awareness, or pure awareness. In other words, an awareness that is not suffering from noise, inner noise. Yeah, Sandeep saying hunting of self-importance, that is a way to get to this awareness. Because once you get to this awareness, a lot of power is unlocked. And power, to deal with power, you need to be an expert hunter of your own self-importance. You need it. Otherwise, that power will chew you up and spit you out, and you'll die, laughing with a stupid smile on your face, thinking that you were such a big shot. So that's a separate topic, dealing with power. Self-importance always accompanies power. Absolutely. It always comes down to inner silence. An awareness that is untainted with inner silence. And you can verify this right now. Just imagine, if you are used to it, then go to your inner silence place. Access your inner silence where there's no dialogue running in your awareness. And if you can, keep the integrity of that awareness. Imagine someone cursing you, throwing bad energy at you, whatever is your big problem with people. Imagine that coming at you. Yeah, right. Someone who's rooted in inner silence, and that's a component of the firewall that warriors carry. Their shielding is incredibly strong. But that's the cement. That's the basic coding of that firewall. It's all based in inner silence. When your inner silence is strong and it reaches a certain threshold, you will lose your human form. And once you lose your human form, there's nothing inside you except pure awareness. Nothing else will be able to live there except pure awareness. That's all there will be. That doesn't mean you become some kind of strange person with like a strange alien or something. No, it simply means that the rightful owner has taken taken ownership again. And the mind, which is meant to serve you, not be your master, takes its rightful place. That's all it is. And then the work on the mind is very important. You can't have a feral mind inside you that you cannot control. There's no power there. So remember this, acts of entitlement and acts of power. Now here's an example. Here's an example of acts of entitlement versus acts of power. Imagine that you have a Toltec warrior working alongside with an average man. Yeah, they're at work. The boss has told them, right, here's your project. You two, please complete this project. Okay? The average man decides that, okay, there's a lot of commission money. We're going to make a lot of money if we manage to do this project very well. We might get a raise and a lot of commissions, a lot of money in there. So But I have to hang out with my friends. I've got that. I've got dinner going, and then I've got this, and I've got that. I also want to watch that TV series, and I want to get that football match. I'm meeting my friends at the pub. Right. What's the least I can get away with in this project and still get all that money? The warrior on the other, and this is not something they figure it out. It's just the way they are. It's the way the average man works. They started working like that when they were very, very young. The indoctrination sets in. Because the average man simply doesn't have the energy to rise above that. The warrior, on the other hand, goes, right, we're gonna crack this one out. We're gonna do the best we can do and more. Simply because it's the impeccable thing to do. So yeah, the warrior puts in 90% of the work. The average man turns up, does what they can, but there's always this paradigm running in the background. They've always got something else to do, which is just as important, if not more. And there's always fucking stuff coming in their life. Oh, sorry, I'm late for the meeting. My car broke down. There's always something happening with you, isn't it? Why are you late to work this time? Oh, I missed the bus. Oh, because I was just, the alarm went off and I just couldn't believe, and I was like, I was out drinking late. There's always bloody something, right? At the end, the work is presented to the boss. And the warrior goes, boss, by the way, the boss says, this is fantastic. You guys just totally killed this project. This is amazing. Fantastic. Well done, both of you. And the warrior goes, boss, you need to know that 99% of this work is mine. That idea there that you've seen in that file, that's mine. I came up with that. I came up with this. I came up with that. That's mine. That's mine. That's mine. I did that. I did that. I did that. Just so that you're aware. And the average man kind of looks around. They've got nothing to say at that point. The boss recognizes the value of what the warrior said and says, okay, fair is fair. I can see that you've put in a lot of work. You take 90% of the money, and the other chap, you get 10%. Fair is fair, because whoever's put in the most work gets the most money. They both walk out of the office. The warrior's got a big smile on his face. The result, the consequences of his impeccability. And guess what the average man says? It's not fair. I did my best. It's just not fair. Oh, you stole my hard work. You took all the glory. You are the boss's favorite. I bet you brown nose him in your spare time. Life is not fair. And the big victim comes out. Acts of entitlement versus acts of power. It happens at any given moment and anywhere in the world. Now the thing is, you can't get hung up on results. Acts of power are done by the warrior. I don't care about acts of power of the average man, because the average man also does that. My only concern is acts of power precipitated by the warrior. Acts of power done by the warrior are done not for results. Results are simply the result of what? Impeccability. The warrior is obsessed with impeccability. The warrior will literally do nothing if it's not impeccable. And whatever the warrior finds themselves doing will be impeccable. Otherwise, they can't be called a Toltec warrior. It can be many kinds of warriors, whatever people fancy, but they can't be called to be a Toltec warrior. Impeccability is inbuilt in the Toltec system, born out of intent, unbending it. You can't be impeccable if you don't have unbending intent. It's just not possible, you see. So keep this in mind and observe yourself in the week ahead as we go. The week ahead, I want you to switch on and observe yourself. Are your acts, how many of your acts are acts of entitlement? And how many of your acts are acts of power? And as you observe, you'll start to get a sense of, right now, it'll be difficult for you to separate these two ideas into functional reality. But slowly, slowly, as you keep observing yourself, keep observing others, keep observing yourself, you'll start seeing very clearly, yeah, you see, that looks like something, but really that's an act of entitlement right there. You see, that's an act of power. I can feel the power in that. I can feel the integrity in it. I can feel the coherence. I can feel how, like a good Lego thing put together, everything fits perfectly in its place, and it's a strong, end result. And that's an act of power. So with that, let's take some questions. Invisible, very nice. I like that name. Invisible, fantastic name. It's not just the media. We are constantly convinced that this is the only way to be. Absolutely. If I was the predator or the parasite, wouldn't you do the same if you were preying on someone, or if you're running a farm? You got to convince the cows that the farm is the safest place, and the farm is the only way to exist. Otherwise, they'll run away. You see. All right, anyone got any questions? So it always comes down to... Yes, Talitha, you're right. Brutal honesty to look at my actions. Impeccability and inner silence leads to human form loss. No, not necessarily. I used to know a guy, gentleman, amazing man. He was instrumental in me losing my human form, and he's not a warrior. He's not a Toltec warrior, you see. But he lost his human form. He literally, he used to be a yoga teacher in London. One day, just one fine day, told the receptionist at the yoga center he was in, say, I'm just going out for lunch. I'll be back later for my next yoga class. Off he went. He lost his human form whilst he was lunching. How it works, no one knows. Came back and said to the receptionist, I know who I am. I know who I am. And since then, he later quit the yoga teaching job and went on to help others lose their human form. And he still does that to this day. So he wasn't being particularly impeccable in his life, or just a yoga teacher, really didn't even think about it. And I don't think he was really pursuing inner silence as such. However, there must have been something, his system must have been ready to make that jump, you see. And all we can do is make our systems ready to make that jump. And after that, it's up to infinity. You don't get to control everything. You don't get to control whether and how and when you lose your human form, which is a blessing. Because imagine if everything was under our control. You think this world is a nightmare now. If everything was under your control. Love from the universe. What do you think about psychedelics? I can only hear needs. Yeah. What involves in making our system ready? Yeah, you have to chase inner silence, Sandeep, and there's really no other way. Impeccability and inner silence, which will keep you occupied 24/7 anyway. So don't look beyond that. Just go for as much impeccability in your life as you can manage, which means that you will have to first know what that word entails, And then go for inner silence as much as you can manage, which also means you'll have to know what that entails. I remember being very surprised at one point, many years ago, during my training, when I realized that people didn't even know what being present actually meant. They had all sorts of ideas in their head about it. And I was like, being present is just being present. What are you talking about? Like, oh, I did a meditation with the archangels, and there's no fucking archangels. Just be present. What the fuck is an archangel? Oh, I was doing some, blah blah meditation. Yeah, it's not meditation. Being present is not meditation, please. It's just not. And they were convinced that they were being present. No, you were not being present, were you? You were off fantasizing, which you call meditation. So be careful. You need to know exactly what inner silence actually means, Yeah, Patrick's right. Yeah, that's a good indication. Being present is also being aware of space. It's very close, very close. Just be aware of the space where you are. The physical space where you are. Just be keenly aware of the space, and you'll be present. Be aware of the soles of your feet, and you'll be present. You don't have to meditate to be aware of the soles of your feet, do you? That's like asking a fish to meditate that it's swimming. It makes no sense, but people do it. That's how insane the average man's world is. Yes. So every bit of personal energy is best used doing anything impeccable. It does not matter what you do at all, simply for the sake of doing it. Exactly. It's one of the big splits between the warrior's world and the average man's world. The average man, watch my last video or one of the lives I did, which was called Getting Laid or Getting Paid. The average man's world revolves around these two motivations. 99% of the average man's motivation has to do with money, and the rest has to do with getting laid. Basically, all of it is the demands and subscriptions of the mating instinct. The average man literally does not know, or the average woman, literally just does not know, cannot, just unable to know anything, to know existing beyond the subtle demands and requirements and subscriptions of the mating instinct. That's how much the infinite creature that we label human being, that's how much the parasite is reduced each creature to. So if your main motivations are either to get money, more money, or to get laid, or both, then you won't know what impeccability really is. Because for warriors, impeccability is a reason unto itself to act. Hey, Anaam, why are you doing this? You know what? I can't explain the reasons to you because they're not the reasons that you would understand. Really, Anaam, you're so arrogant. No, I'm just stating the truth. What do you understand by the word impeccability? Oh, impeccability. Impeccability, right, yeah. Impeccability means that I should always send my children to school, even, because education is so important. Impeccability means that always obey the law. And impeccability means that I should, be a good, hard worker and provide for my family. And I'm just going, yeah, good, thank you, bye-bye. That's not impeccability, that's just complying to the demands and subscriptions of the mating instinct. Although it sounds like impeccability, it's not. For the warrior, those are just nonsensical bullshit things. The warrior does things simply because it is the impeccable thing to do. No other reason required. I hope that clears it up. Yeah, excellent. All right. Have a great week ahead. And do what I suggested during the week. Observe yourself. Observe others around you. What are acts of entitlement and what are acts of power? And if you feel, oh, I don't really know, then go with impeccability instead and you'll be fine. Okay, with that, walk in freedom. Let me know in the comments what you think. Be yourself. And I shall see you next week, same time. Bye.